This is TWiT.
It's that time of the year again where OnePlus makes you forget about their other flagship release and tempts you with their step up from what you already thought was, pretty cool. The OnePlus 6 saw its official release back in May, and here we are at the height of smartphone season with the expected update, the OnePlus 6T. And as is usually the case for OnePlus, if you allow for that addendum of a T to the 6 to indicate an incremental improvement, you would be shortchanging yourself. Often, it's the T release that brings the more impressive upgrades. So let's dive into the OnePlus 6T to see what tricks OnePlus has up its sleeve this time. As we've come to expect, the OnePlus lineup is almost always about top-of-line features in a value price category. The OnePlus 6T starts at $549, which gets you the premium Snapdragon 845 processor, along with a new baseline of 128 gigs of storage, as well as a larger 3,700 milliamp hour battery underneath. That leads to a design that is a slight bit thicker than the 6, but not by that much. That larger battery is made possible by OnePlus's decision, like nearly every other major device maker nowadays, to eliminate the analog headphone jack in favor of USB-C. Like you didn't see that coming a mile away. But that larger battery makes for improved longevity, and we can all get behind that, I would say. The 6T has OnePlus's standard notification toggle switch on the side that I still can't help but confuse for the power or display button. Maybe someday I'll adjust, but let's focus on the front of the device for now. And notice just how nearly bezel-less this device actually is. The bottom chin is slightly thicker than the sides, but up top, you're going to notice a relatively minuscule notch. Let's call it a teardrop notch. When put side by side with the newly released Pixel 3 XL, it's hard to ignore just how much less of an eyesore the notch on the 6T is, comparatively speaking. That smaller notch space leaves more room for notifications to spread out, though really not that much more, but it's there, and it's probably the best notch I've seen on a phone to date. They achieved this svelte implementation by eliminating the notification light that used to be up there next to the camera. So if you're a fan of that, you're going to be a little disappointed. Doesn't bother me personally, so I'm all for this new notch. Now, what you won't see until I actually turn off the display is something hidden underneath the display, and that's an optical fingerprint sensor. That's right, the 6T doesn't have a hardware fingerprint sensor in the chin or on the back like we've seen countless times before. It's embedded into the display, and you know where it is by the sharp green outline that shines through the glass here. Tap and hold, and you'll find your way into the device. I'm thrilled to see this technology. We've been hearing about it for so long now, and I've been using it regularly, though I will admit it seems to be slower than other fingerprint sensors I've grown accustomed to at times. Sometimes it's faster, sometimes it's slower, slightly longer wait times before gaining access to my device. It just takes a little getting used to. And honestly, if you have Face Unlock set up, then you might not need to use the fingerprint sensor as much as you might think. The cameras on the device are the same ones from the 6. No upgrades there. And if you remember my review of the OnePlus 6, then you'll know that I feel like the cameras on this device are sufficient, not groundbreaking, satisfactory for this price category especially. If you take a ton of pictures with your phone, this might not be your first go-to pick, but you could do a lot worse than the 6T. The software itself is actually pretty great. The 6T is running Google's latest version of Android Pie, though it is OnePlus's version of Android Pie. And OnePlus tweaked the gesture navigation setup into something a bit more palatable than Google's offering. Swiping up from the pill brings you to multitasking and never into the app drawer like we're used to seeing with Google's version of Pie. Kind of a strange implementation there. If you want the app drawer in this case, you just swipe up from the center of the screen. It only takes a few times to learn this new style, and it's way more approachable. Now, OnePlus does offer an entirely different gesture navigation style that eliminates that navigation bar down at the bottom entirely. That, of course, takes even more time to learn, but once you actually get the hang of it, it's really quite smart. Anyway, you have good options in software, another hallmark of OnePlus phones. Finally, it should be noted that this is the first phone in OnePlus's 5-year history to strike a deal with a U.S. carrier. So you will actually see these devices in T-Mobile stores, which should be a big opportunity for the company to broaden its brand exposure. Not only that, they also finally cleared this device for use on Verizon's network. That's a first here. OnePlus is moving on up. Overall, for $549 to start, this is a lot of phone for the money, especially in this age of $1,000 mega smartphones. Do you need all that phone? And more importantly, do you have all that dough to spend on them? If not, the 6T is waiting for you, and it has some really cool tricks up its sleeve for when you come knocking. I'm Jason Howell. You can catch my reviews on All About Android and a whole lot more on Tech News Weekly every week here on TWiT.tv.